Hi, I'm Sean from Money and Medicine. Today we have the privilege to have Pieter de Villiers join us. Pieter was a vet. He is currently part of the Money and Medicine team, where he also empower the veterinary professionals starting out in their professional careers, going into CCS. So Pieter, just to jump right into it, if I could ask you if you can just share a bit of your journey on why did you choose to become a veterinary professional?
Thank you so much, Sean, for the opportunity, and yeah, it's an honor to be here today. So I think for me, it was always about the animals. Always had a love for and passion for helping others, especially animals. And veterinary science at the time when I had to decide in matric what I wanted to do, it's kind of split between actuarial science and veterinary science. Wasn't sure which way to go. The decision that I decided to go into vet science was the inherent passion of helping and making an impact. And at the time, veterinary science seemed to be the best option for it. And from there, it just evolved through university. Really had a good time. It's a tough degree. 6 years, it's a long time. But apart from the knowledge that you gain as a vet, there's so many other skills that you learn that you can apply in different areas of life. So for me, it was mostly just the impact and predominantly also helping animals in need and also making an impact in the owners' lives, because pets are essentially part of any family these days. It's like children.
Great, thanks for sharing, Pieter. So it's fair to say that you made a big change in profession, a big change in your lifestyle. What were some of the biggest financial challenges you faced during education and perhaps in your early career, starting out in CCS?
Yeah, so the big thing, and I think it's for me it was as a vet, but I think it's across the board for any young professional entering the workforce. Unfortunately, the education system, whilst we do learn a lot and it's really jam-packed to get through school and then to get a degree, you learn so much. But unfortunately, where in my opinion, I think it's lacking is just the personal finance side of, okay, now cool, now I've worked hard, I have a degree, I can get a job, I can earn a salary, but now what? How do I manage a salary? What do I do? There's no real guide when you step into the workforce. For me, it was very much thrown in the deep end, learn to swim. And unfortunately, through that, you oftentimes have to make mistakes to learn. And yeah, it was initially, you don't think it's much of a problem because you kind of just wing it as time goes by. But the more you progress in your career and you reflect back, the more you wish, like, oh, I wish I knew this and this and this, so I didn't make these mistakes. And I'm not an utopia, but I've had conversations with all the professionals who have been through this journey, and many of them reflect back when they were young and they wish they knew what they had to know. So the big one is probably just how to manage money, how to budget, how to track expenses, and making informed financial decisions. Because if you don't know what you don't know, and it's not always the case that you get taught what you need to know before making a decision. And so I wish I kind of had that transitioning into the working career, having the proper education in place so that I could have made informed decisions at the time.
Pieter, I definitely agree with you. And I think that's what we're currently seeing, working with the final years, veterinary students. Even if we look at the veterinary professionals that have been practicing for a long time, I think there's a huge lack in education. I think that clients are being bombarded with a lot of information and not necessarily knowing what they have in place, how these things are structured, what to look at, and how to even just start with the basics of financial planning, the basic steps of what needs to be in place. So, Pieter, if I could ask you if you can maybe share with our audience, what type of services or products would you recommend to a veterinary professional just starting out?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that stepping into the workforce, you've worked along, you sacrificed a lot of your life, whether you are a vet, a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, whatever the case may be, to get a degree and, to really get to the point where you can start working. And oftentimes your biggest risk, which is also inherently your biggest asset, if we use that term, it's not going to be your car or your house or even the practice that you may end up building. It's your ability to earn an income. It's your knowledge, skills, experience that you exchange for value, and for that you get paid. Now, if you are not able to deliver those skills, knowledge, and experience to earn the money for that exchange, you end up losing so much potential over your lifetime. And if we do that calculation, it's quite scary, the amount. So I think, day one, we have to protect your ability to earn an income. It's, in my opinion, a non-negotiable. There's always the T's and C's of what type of, solution would be best for you. But that is one of the most important things. The kind of conversations I use, if I have these conversations with other younger professionals, the investments always sounds like the fun, the sexy thing. I want to start investing, property portfolio. I want to build a business. And whilst that is very important, definitely it's not in the immediate kind of urgent phase of you build towards that. So I think like starting day one, you're going to earn a salary. So you have to make sure that you are adequately protected, your ability to income. If some very like disasters happen in your life, financial disasters, like you get terminally ill, you're in an accident, those medical costs can go into the millions. You want to protect that. So for example, medical aid is important. If you have large assets, house, car, that if they get written off, it will be a big financial burden. We need to protect that. So that's kind of on the protection side, but also learning how to manage money. Because you're already doing the first side of the equation, right? You studied hard, you got a degree, earning good income. But that's not going to build wealth. You need to learn how to manage money. You have that other side of the equation, like how do I now use this inflow of funds in the best way possible? How do I optimize that to build wealth? Because unfortunately, contrary to popular belief and probably quite surprising to many, some medical professionals work their entire life, and you think, earning very good money by the age of, 50, 55, they can retire. It's not what we see. We see them working until the age of 70, 80 because they don't have enough. And I think that's not a problem, earning problem. It's a managing problem, because I haven't been taught from the early days, how do I actually manage my money? How do I track my expenses? Not being like overly obsessive about and compulsive tracking every cent, but just being conscious of where's my money flowing, and does that reflect what is important to me? Because you also need to enjoy life. We're not saying, live a restrictive life, but just being conscious and know that spending money on the stuff that's important to you whilst protecting what is more important, and then having money left over to enjoy life. So from that perspective, also building an emergency fund from day one, that is very important. Before we even get to investments, you have to have that emergency fund. If you don't, and there's a disaster, financial disaster, it's either you're going to have to take out debt, short-term debt, like credit cards, loans, which is another rabbit hole that you don't want to go down, or you're going to be dependent on family. And, if you've got this degree that you've worked hard for, you want to start becoming self-dependent. So there's a very meticulous process that you need to follow to build wealth. And I wish that was something that I was taught back then, because I was all over the place. I wasn't sure when I should start what. And I wish if I had the kind of structure in place, I would have been much better off financially. Again, earning exactly the same, but knowing how to manage that in the sequence of events that is most important at the time. That will determine your true success as a medical professional financially.
Okay. So to add to that then, Pieter, is what we do for our clients is first of all, we need to see is how do we manage our wealth? And that is, like you mentioned now, is setting up a budget, proper tax planning, and also setting up that emergency fund, which is crucial as a first step in making sure that we know how we manage our income and our finances. And the second thing would then be is to protect, as you mentioned, income, being your biggest asset. How do we make sure that our income is covered to protect us against future risks? And when all those are in place, then we can then start looking at wealth creation and how are we going to get to that goal, to financial freedom, which we all strive for. The next thing that I think we can maybe touch on is how soon we've spoken about the investments. When we look at implementing management and implementing our protection plans, our income protection, how soon would you advise someone to start looking at investments?
Yeah, so if I play kind of the first year that I was, working as a vet, so it's similar to the medical doctors. We've got a compulsory community service that we work for the government. And then after that, it's kind of like private practice. It's the same, but different with dentists, doctors, vets. But if I reflect back on my first year, the first month is really, it's the wild west, because the good thing is you're earning a salary, but the bad thing is the salaries are getting paid end of the month, around the 25th. So, and you've got to find a place to rent. They want a double month's deposit. You have to open a bank account. Maybe you need to get a vehicle in place. So there's a lot of stuff. You're moving into a new apartment. You're used to staying, living like a student in a small room, which is fine. That's great. Now you're moving to a different location in the country. You need to maybe get a fridge, you need to buy some furniture. There's a lot of upfront costs that it's like bombarding you from all sides. And now you get that first, somehow you get through that first month, get your salary. And now month 2, that first month, the debit orders start coming off. What we talked about, the insurance, the medical aid and stuff like that. So then after like the first 2-3 months, it's really like just trying to survive. At least that's what it was for me. So I think as a young working professional, don't put too much pressure on yourself to suddenly commit to these long-term investments. And I'm saying this with kind of like a caveat. I'm not saying it's not important. It's just thinking of what is most urgent, because it doesn't make sense really to have these long-term commitments in place, but you can't survive throughout the month. There's no point in investing in for example, retirement annuity if you have to take out credit card debt just to get through the month. So again, there's very much a sequence of events. So I'd say for the first 3 months, get used to your cash flow. You're going to earn a salary, enjoy it, pay what is necessary. Also treat yourself, experience life. You have worked hard. You deserve, to be treated well. But that ties back to what I said earlier. You need to be conscious of what you're spending. Don't, because the banks will give you a credit card, no problem. You need to learn how to use that responsibly. And we can touch on that later on, building a credit score. But just be cautious that you don't overspend, living up here whilst you should be here. So for first 3 months, get used to cash flow, and then just focus on, can I get through the end of the month having more money in my bank account than what I started? Spending less than I'm earning, and then use that amount. Very simple. Put it in your savings account. That's it. That's all you need to focus on for that. I'd say even the first 3, 4, 5 months, because we're all different. Some of us might start off with a student loan, a car loan, maybe some family debt, some family responsibilities that we need to pay. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just me. Whilst others, they've got it, maybe a bit easier. There's not a lot of expenses. So first couple of months, learn how to spend less than you earn, and then save up until you have about, at least 1 month of living expenses saved up in the savings account. Ideally 3 months, so that you've got that cash buffer. This is also important, especially for the doctors. After your 2 years of internship in ComServe, you're not guaranteed that you'll be placed. You're not guaranteed that you'll be employed. Same thing with vets, same thing with dentists. After that compulsory year, you need to go find work. It's not to say that you're going to get a job day one. It should be like that, but it's not. It's not the reality in South Africa. So you need some savings that you can fall back on. Okay, I'll be fine for a couple of months to get things to find my feet, and then only after that, I'd say you've got your good risk products in place. You're building up the 3-month emergency fund. Then we start thinking about investments. Because if you're going to start at the age of 25, investing for retirement, that's, let's say, age 65, you've got 40 years to invest. It's not going to make a difference if you start in January or in March or even in July. It's all relative to the long term. Rather, you're not going to build your house on sand. You need to build that foundation, because if you build it on sand, it's going to blow over. You'll be destroyed. So I would say, at least for the first 3 months, focus on building that emergency fund. Even if it takes longer, maybe it takes 6 months, that's fine. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, but know that there will come a point where you need to start also paying yourself first, start putting money away for retirement, because that is important. But about 3 to 6 months, I would say, is a good measure.
Okay. Thanks, Pieter. And I think you've alluded to the fact that being in CCS and not knowing what happens after that year, maybe not getting employment, working part-time here and there, seeing where you can maybe get an opportunity to locum perhaps, or getting an employment but losing a lot of your income. So what would you advise the people that enter CCS, our veterinary professionals, what would you say to them in CCS? Should you go and buy that Hilux and do all the nice stuff? I know you mentioned you only live once, and we need to get a fine balance. But how important is it to just keep in mind that we don't know what the future is going to hold after CCS, and also budget-wise? I don't know if you maybe made those mistakes, if you can maybe share something to that regard.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things I saw, what happened in my and amongst my group, is got that first salary, go straight to the bank or to the car dealership and like, okay, what can I afford? I've been driving this, I'll stick in the Polo Key or City Golf, that's the 4th generation one, that's 1980 model, that's barely starting. I want the Bucky now, I want to treat myself. And that's perfectly fine. But the risk is, if you go to the car dealership or even the bank, you want to buy a car, you're going to ask what you earn, you're going to tell them, they're going to like, oh, okay, cool, you qualify for this. But be mindful that the bank only looks at your income. They don't understand your entire financial situation. They maybe don't understand you've got other financial responsibilities. Maybe you're saving to start a practice. Maybe you have some family responsibilities that you need to fund. They just look at what is the maximum amount that we can, give you a loan to buy the biggest car that you can afford. So that is very important to understand, because yes, at that point, and especially for vets, your first year at ComServe, Compulsory Community Service here, you're going to earn a good salary. That's great. After that, it's not going to be the same. If you're in South Africa, you start private practice, you can expect your ComServe salary to sometimes even half. So I wanted to make that clear because that's something that I didn't really understood back in the time. So you kind of start eating the cake before you have to eat your vegetables. That's kind of how the vets work. So be careful not to overcommit to large like car payments, because a car is not an asset. Yes, you need to get from point A to point B. You need to drive to work. And yes, if you are a vet that you're kind of thinking about working with production animals, you're going to need a bigger car, a bakkie to get around. But don't go and buy the latest Hilux, just be mindful of that, because you need to factor in that premium that's going to form part of your budget. And this is now again added to all the other stuff that's important, and having someone to just guide you through that to make sure you don't overextend yourself. Otherwise, the car dealerships have a lot of tricks. They will try and, add a balloon payment, and then it reduces your monthly payment. So there's a lot of things that we don't know. If no one tells us this, you don't know what you don't know. And making sure that you don't overcommit too early in your career, because it's nice buying a new car. If you've got that new car smell, everyone is cheering you on, posting the photos on Facebook, all things nice, the car smells good. But 2 weeks later, no one really cares, but 2 weeks later, everyone forgot, and you still have those payments for the next 5-6 years. So rather start small, because you are still early in your career, and be more conscious and responsible. And then maybe in 5-6 years of building a career and you've got all the other stuff in place, then you can upgrade if a car is even an important thing. If driving a nice car is important to you, then that's fine, but don't focus too soon on going for that most expensive thing. Because again, you need a car to get from point A to B. You don't need the best, newest and flashiest car to get that, because that's unfortunately one of the biggest things that sinks young professionals, because they just get trapped into this debt cycle that they can't pay it off. And then once that car is eventually paid off, now it's time to upgrade, because the bank called me, it's 5 years, I need a new car. So just be conscious of that.
Yeah. I recommend my clients, and I've seen many of these mistakes being made, where a client would just approach the dealership, and then the dealership doesn't know the background, like you mentioned, credit score. They just want the deal. They give them something with a 30% balloon payment. They accept the deal, and now you're stuck in this. And this particular client that I'm referring to actually bought his mom a car as well. So he's got his salary and didn't think post CCS or whatever comes next. And he made these decisions, and we had a meeting just the other day where he said, like, Sean, help me. I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. And it's really tough to get out of that situation. So I think that's why we obviously have the professional financial advisors, the bankers that we also refer and help our clients to talk to, just so that we know our clients make the correct decisions and they don't make unnecessary mistakes. If I could then ask you, if you could go back in time, were there maybe some financial decisions that you did make in CCS or just after graduation that you would maybe do something different?
I think for me, so I was at an interest in finance. So I tried to read finance books as a vet. I probably didn't study enough. I did all sorts of other stuff, committees and sports and that's so I always had a lot of interest, and finance was one of them. So when I started working, I had a good understanding of budgeting and tracking expenses, and I wasn't good, but at least I started at a point of being conscious. I think for me the big thing was when I understood I needed to have some structures in place, and I had conversations with different advisors at the time to see who's going to help me with this and this and this. And whilst they all were presenting good solutions, I kind of experienced there was a very superficial type of more transactional, you need these products, let's sell those, you need these investments. And at the time, you understand it's important to take it out. But then after that, it was kind of the conversation, the relationship ran dry. There wasn't like a continuous engagement, educational. For me, it was important to really know, this is the vision for my life. This is what I want to achieve. How do I do that? And for me, it was just mostly the conversation was more centered around the transactional side of implementation of products, and not so the relationship side and the educational side. So I wish, I'm not sure what I would have done differently in that sense, because I had conversations with different advisors, and I got the right structures in place. But also some of the structures for example, one of the investments was later on in my life, I found out this thing is maybe not in my best interest, and I wouldn't have known at the time because I didn't understand it. Financial industry is very it's like a maze. It's can sometimes be quite difficult to understand all the jargon if you're not familiar with it. So you would expect someone at that point to really guide you and to have your best interest at heart, not to see you as another kind of like transactional. Let's move on to the next. So I wish that was something that I had at the time, that professional guidance, because that is very important and it will determine your success. With whom you decide to pair up with.
So it's almost like basically partnering with the correct advisor, the correct team, someone that you can trust in, someone that has your interest at heart and actually wants to build the plan with you, rather than just giving you some sort of a solution and then disappear.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's exactly what we try and do, Pieter, as you know, having the plan blueprint. It's something that we can start implementing, and it's almost a year-long implementation. It takes that daunting task of getting your affairs in order. It just breaks it down into more easier and simpler steps. I think that's just what we try and do for our clients. I think the last question that I would like to ask you is, you've been a veterinary professional or a qualified veterinary professional. You have a successful financial channel yourself as well that you've built up, started while being a vet. What would you say is the strength of money in medicine? Why partner with money in medicine?
Yeah, so my journey into the finance industry was mostly, I started as a vet. There were some questions that I needed answers to and I couldn't find it, so I had to start educating myself, start reading articles and blogs and watching videos. And I have quite an analytical mind, so I really, if I don't understand something, I mini obsess over it and I really go deep, and then I kind of dissect it, if we use medical terms, and then I understand it. And okay, cool, now I can move on to the next thing. And what I experienced was, for me, to really understand something, it's better to try and teach it to someone, because then you really go deep. You need to know your stuff. And when I started having conversations with friends and colleagues, they also struggled with the same thing. So I thought at the time, okay, cool, let me create a video, as bad as it might be at that point in time, and put it on the internet. Maybe it helps one person. And through that, I actually saw that it's not a vet thing. It's across the board. People don't know these things, because yes, we can go on the internet and search these things, but it's so difficult to find reliable, accurate information, because that's always is a double-edged sword, having so much knowledge available. So through that, I've learned that kind of teaching others and really helping them, acting in their best interest without expecting much in return is how you actually build relationships and successful long-term businesses. And that is when I decided to kind of transition into the finance industry, because I wanted to be that person that I wish I had. But it was a scary decision to make, because you studied 6 years. Now you're going to go in a completely different direction. So I wasn't sure, where I could fit in and where's my little safe space that I can do what I wanted to do, the reason why I moved. And that's where I came across money in medicine. I got into contact with Werner, one of the founders. He shared a bit of what he does, and it sounded like awesome. It's like exactly that's what I wish I had back in that day. And, the team is young, it's dynamic, it's innovative. And it's a strong focus on education, which I really appreciate, because that is what I wish I had. Because again, you don't know what you don't know, and you want to make sure that the person that you partner with needs to understand you as an individual, needs to know who Sean is. What is Sean's background of, what's your understanding of money? How did you grow up? What are your concerns, your fears? What are your future vision? What do you want to build? Do you want to build a practice? Do you want to go overseas? What does that look like? So that, me as the advisor, you as the advisor can then take that information and build a customized plan that resonates with you, and not just a blanket, everyone, Oprah style, like you get one. It's like, no, I'm building something customized to you. In addition to that, I'm giving you a plan, a blueprint, not trying to overwhelm you if we can do everything at once, but showing you what the next steps are, because we understand as young medical professionals, you've got so much stuff that you are busy with. You're very busy, you work hard. You don't really always have the time or necessarily the interest to learn all these things yourself. It took me many years to get to a point of really understanding my finances. And you've become a vet because you like being a vet. You like clinical medicine. So there are some things that you need to understand, but you need to make sure that the person that you partner with knows you as a person, first of all, and then builds a plan that resonates with you, that makes sense to you, and that can answer the questions that you want. So I think that's what stood out for me from Money Medicine, why I decided to join, was because they create that type of atmosphere and environment that helps medical professionals to flourish in their careers, both financially, but also, to build successful lives for themselves and their families, and to pay it forward. Because also, if you help one medical professional, managing their money well, they're going to start having conversations with colleagues. And I think that is what South Africa needs, is within the medical the industry, but also outside. So we need to start educating ourselves and we need to start sharing. And I think that's the message that money medicine resonates when I looked out from the outside, focusing on education and empowering medical professionals, understanding that we can't be everything for everyone, but we can try and be everything for someone. And that is the message that I want to help build and want to be part of that movement. And so that would be my kind of summary of money medicine.
Okay. So basically it's just alludes to what our vision is. And our vision is to be the leading educational financial platform for medical professionals. It's to educate young medical professionals, specialists in the field, anyone that is in the medical profession, and just with that personal touch, is to just to go that extra mile and try and be different, try and understand and give personalized and tailored solutions.
Yeah, and understanding the journey that the person will walk with. The journey for a vet and a dentist and a doctor is different. But you need to understand what is the next step. If I take medical doctors as an example, they've got the 2 years internship and then ComServe, and then it's, either register, you could become an MO for the state, you go private, you go overseas. For vets, it's the 1 year compulsory service, and then you're on your own, then you start a private practice, you build your own practice. So as an advisor, you need to advise accordingly. And to do that, you need to understand that journey that person will go. And you need to know which phase of that journey there's potential pitfalls that we can proactively plan and not step into that pothole and break your leg and then say, oh, I wish I knew this. And having that guidance of that foresight, someone knows what is the next steps and, showing you the way forward in a proactive manner that understands you and that resonates with your values.
Pieter, I would really like to thank you for joining me with this. I think we really will empower young veterinarians that have a daunting task ahead of them with this interview, all the way from Cape Town. So I appreciate that. And then until next time, remember to plan the plan.